Hi there, welcome to this week market update. So as usual, what we're going to do is to quickly highlight to you what are some of the key events that has happened for the past week, something that you need to take note of. And then what we'll do is we'll go into what are some of the potential insights that you want to take note of for the week ahead. Okay, so again, if you're very new to what we do over here on a week-to-week basis, would like to welcome you. Okay, and if you watch this video and you feel that you can enjoy it, you benefited from it, do give this video a thumbs up because that will help my YouTube algorithm to reach out to more traders as well. And make sure you subscribe to the channel so that when I release a new video in the future, you'll be updated. And for those of you who have been subscribed to the channel, following me for some time, welcome back. Okay, so again, if you actually enjoy benefit, also do like this video and let me know in the comments, right, what are some of the key takeaways that you can benefited and learn from this particular episode over here. Okay, so without further ado, I'm gonna show you my screen. We're gonna walk through some of the articles, some of the things, and I'll give you some insights along the way, and we'll look at the market for the week ahead. Right, so first piece of article here to actually talk about is the title you can see. Okay, Footsie buys backs, profit recovery prompts repurchase surge. Okay, so for those of you who are not familiar with this term called share buybacks, it's pretty common in the US and of course in the UK here as well, which if you put it very simply, is the companies using whatever resources that they have to go out to the market and buy back their shares that's floating out in the market. Okay, so in other words, if you think about it from a demand and supply perspective, okay, share buybacks are basically a company reducing the supply of its shares that's available for trading in the market. Okay, so if let's say you understand demand and supply, when demand remains constant in this case and supply gets reduced because of the share buybacks, then what will happen is generally the price will go up. Okay, so you can think of it as it's actually a good thing for us as retail investors if companies do regular share buybacks, because that would then continue to push prices for the market higher. Okay, so there are a couple of reasons as to why a company wants to do share buybacks. Okay, you can give this article a read. You can of course find more information online as well, but generally they want to maintain a good book. Okay, especially if they forecast that in the future their earnings are going to be great. Okay, and investors or shareholders do not really like to see like a pile of cash untouched. It's not going to be very effective and efficient for a company to just maintain cash like that. Okay, so one of the way to do that is of course through share buybacks, right, to increase its assets as well. Okay, so that's something to take note of. So for us as investors, it will be a great thing because this also indicate to us that maybe companies right now are having a more positive outlook going into maybe 2022. Okay, and that would be good news for us because that would translate into share price going higher. Yeah. The other one here that it's interesting to note, okay, I think by now if you're active in the equities market, you should have already observed. Okay, September is a down month in the equities market. First 2 weeks of October has been very, very volatile. But last week it actually closed off a little bit on the high side, right? Later we'll look at the chart on S&P and you'll be able to see it clearer. Okay, but last week as of Friday, we actually end off the week bullish, which is interesting, right? Because usually when the Fed is concerned of inflation and we are starting to see tightening, equities market tends to be weakening. Okay, but right now what we are seeing is that while at the same time inflation data is coming in hot, we are expecting the Fed to do tapering by November, yet we do see a very strong rebound in the equities, okay, as of last week. Okay, so again, as investor or even as a trader, we are not academics, right? We are not there to go and discuss like what should be right, what should be wrong. But what we want to do is we want to then capitalize on the price movement and make the best out of it. Okay, so there's no need for us to like say, oh, this is correct, this is wrong, but at the end of the day the market is always right. Okay, and what we do is simply be adaptive enough to move along together with the market. Okay, so if it's going up, we're going to look to buy. If it's coming down, we're going to look to sell. Okay, and for me, one of the way that I trade the equities market is through historical statistics, right? We call it seasonal trade ideas. If you're interested, I'll basically drop a link in the description, in this video here as well. If you want, you can go and click it, find out a little bit more and see if that's what you are looking out for as well in a way to trade the equities market. Okay, so for me, going forward over here, I think while we can expect the bullish momentum to keep going, okay, later we'll look at the chart to give you some ideas as to which are the price level to take note of, but you still want to be very, very careful over here. Yeah. Okay. Another information or another article here that I think is interesting to keep an eye on, it's the energy market. Okay, I think you should also be aware of it, that there are quite a bit of like quote unquote energy crisis happening right now, especially with like natural gas. And the interesting thing is, we are at the end of the year, which is the winter season, right? And it's cold in the winter, and we in Malaysia and Singapore, we don't need it. Okay, but if you are living in like US, European, Western countries, you need the energy, whether is it natural gas, fossil fuel, electricity, to kind of heat up, right? Because it's a winter season, and usually during this period of time, the demand for energy shoots up. Okay, but what's interesting right now is the demand hasn't really kind of like start peaking. But we are facing some kind of supply issue, right? Perhaps it's because of COVID lockdown. There are quite a bit of like a lack of capacity in producing, the energy output. Therefore, it's going to be very interesting, okay? And this itself has also driven inflation to the upside, okay? So that's why there's a lot of factors kind of affecting and debate going along. Like, is inflation right now transitory, short term, or is it going to be sticky, right? So honestly, nobody will know the answer. I think even the Feds are struggling to kind of like make a very convicted decision on what they should be doing. Okay, and everyone is basically saying we need to be nimble enough, adaptive enough, and see how the markets react from there. Okay, so if let's say you are interested in the energy market, if you're someone who's trading like some of the commodities, okay, definitely opportunities are available, right? So for example, copper, aluminium, natural gas, crude oil. Okay, these are some of the example of energy related ones. Okay, so with that, let's take a look at the technical charts. Okay, so as usual, first up, let's take a look at the dollar index. Okay, now last week we have a very interesting bounce from 94.50. Okay, I think last week we did mention that you want to keep an eye on this key zone here as well, because there's a high chance price will actually react. I kind of reject from there, right? So we did see kind of very nice rejection, and right now going into next week, the next level to pay very close attention is somewhere around 93.60. Okay, right now dollar index is basically in a range bound environment, right? For me, I will be looking at 93.60. Okay, if let's say price were to continue to come down a little bit on the slow side, forming what we call a crawl, then I would be very interested to look for the buy, perhaps short-term back up towards 94.50, okay, or even higher. Another factor here to add on is some of you know that we combine a little bit of the historical seasonal statistics. Okay, so for dollar index, for the past 10 years, between 19th of August to 23rd of November, there's a 90% probability that dollar actually rally during this window of period. Okay, and 19 is basically on the, if I'm not wrong, tomorrow is 18, 19 is Tuesday, right? So for a majority part of the next week, maybe we might get an opportunity to buy into the US dollar. Okay, so again, if you're interested in some of these methods here, we do have some trainings and research provided for you guys as well, right? We call it the EWS methodology. If you're interested, I'll drop a link below. Again, just go and find out more about it. Okay, so dollar index over here, I'm actually holding a bullish bias going into next week because of the potential technical setup, plus the seasonal here telling me that the probability to the upside might be higher. Okay, now in terms of gold, I would suggest to stay away for now because it's not like the clearest setup. Okay, there are a couple of potential possibilities or scenario that this can happen. Okay, one is that this would then form kind of like a mini consolidation of flag, and this suggests that we can see gold hit lower. Okay, alternatively, of course, this can actually kind of like evolve, and this would start to perhaps come down a little bit, something like the dollar index over here, and this can then also pop back up for a more complex kind of like pattern over here. Okay, so it's not the clearest as of what I'm seeing today, because again, we do see just as a V shape here. Usually I would say just stay away from it. Okay, so for gold, or even in fact precious metal like silver, okay, you might want to just stay away and give it time for clearer development. Okay, now equities, S&P, right? Just now we say that the end of the week at a high, right? You can see the momentum, and not only that, it kind of managed to break out of this entire trend line. Okay, from September all the way to the first 2 weeks of consolidation, very volatile market. It managed to break through above it. So there's a good chance that momentum is going to follow suit back up towards its previous high around 4,550. There's a very high possibility of that happening. But the question, of course, is it going to go straight up, or is it going to continue maintaining its kind of volatile movement before the next move? Nobody will know. Okay, but for me, I'm still bullish on the equities overall. Okay, as I mentioned in some of the earlier videos, I'm going to hold on to a bullish bias all the way until the Fed actually start tapering. Okay, and going into maybe up to like next year. Okay, we might hold a bullish but cautious perspective, right, in the equities market. Okay, so just now I mentioned right earlier in this video as well, if you're interested to find out how I trade the equities market using historical statistics, do check out the link below. We call it the seasonal trade ideas, right? So equities, nothing much, right? So expect more upside. If you see any buy opportunity, right, you can expect that. Primary target here will be 4,550. Okay, Bitcoin is very interesting, right? I did not manage to get involved in it because I was basically waiting for a pullback. It did not happen. Okay, the momentum to the upside continues, and there's a very high chance we might see Bitcoin actually retest its all-time high somewhere around 65,000 by next week. Very, very high possibility because of the momentum that's shooting up. Right, but for me, I'll be a little bit patient. I would say I would not get involved here, of course. I would still want to have a valid setup, and for me, okay, I need to definitely see some kind of flag, a consolidation, a correction before I get involved with buy. Okay, based on historical stats, we do have the seasonality kind of like support the upside here as well, because between 18th of August to 9th of November, based on historical past 10 years, Bitcoin has a 70% chance of rallying. Okay. But for me, technical is not the best price yet. Okay, I would want to wait for a clear setup before I get involved. Ideally, I want to see it goes above the previous high. That's a mini consolidation here, and then that will be a very solid opportunity for me to get involved in Bitcoin, and this can go way higher. Okay, a lot of times I hear people say like, an asset, okay, it can be Bitcoin, it can be oil, it can be anything, right? Tend to say, people would say that, oh, this is already so expensive, why would you still go and buy it? Okay, but expensive or cheap is actually a relative thing. Okay, when you say something is expensive, what are you comparing it to? If you say something is at a discount or cheap, what are you comparing it to? Okay, so whenever you think about expensive and cheap, at the end of the day, you're doing a comparison. Okay, but you need to be very, very clear, what are you comparing to, right? Is it a valid comparison? Okay, because if today you say that, oh, 65,000 is expensive because you just feel that, it's 65,000, right? You could have buy a lot of other things compared to like one Bitcoin worth 65,000. Yeah, that's true in a way, that's true in that perspective, but it's not a true valuation of an asset. Okay, of course, what is the real valuation of Bitcoin? I don't know, right? Is there even such a value? It's very difficult to say. Okay, crypto to me is still a very speculative asset. But as a trader, okay, number one, I don't believe in something being too expensive as a trader, because what we do is we trade the price. Okay, at the same time, the opposite is true. Okay, there's no such thing as something being too cheap, because whatever price has fallen, it can always fall lower, right? So at the end of the day, what we do is we are basically just trading the price movement. Okay, so to me as a trader, there's no such thing as cheap or expensive, because what we do is just, if the market is going up, we trade it to the upside. If the market is coming down, we trade it to the downside. Okay, that's about it. Okay, so I hope today's this week's episode over here does give you some insights, from different angles and perspective of the market. Whenever I do a video like that, I always do my very best to give you as much value as I can as well. Okay, again, if you enjoy this video, you learn something out of it, okay, do give it a thumbs up, because that would really help the YouTube algorithm. Okay, and if you're not subscribed, make sure you do that, because we do release videos here regularly, and you wouldn't want to miss out on them, because some of those videos are time sensitive in terms of the opportunity available in the market. Okay, so that's all from me. All the best for the week ahead, and we'll see each other very soon again.